Okay, I guess we're going. Broadcasting again. Hopefully, it seems like we got a good picture. I think we got a good connection in this location. I'm going to share the stream to some other folks on Facebook and Twitter X. Looks like we are broadcasting. And one person watching, that might be me.
Are you signed into YouTube? Yep, that's it right there.
Good. Turn that speaker off.
Volume sounds good.
I spell unique right? U-N-I-Q, uniquely, L-Y.
Uniqly.
Oh, U-E-L-Y. Oh well, you're going to see that my spelling isn't good.
So interesting.
Yeah, they're asking for my old email on Twitter, so I don't want to update it now, but I'll get it another time. I'll do it. Yeah. Okay, so it looks like I got a post there. We'll see if Facebook will take my offering. It's a picture from series again, different angle, and it actually shows the shadows on the sides of the object in the bottom left, the big bright volcano or whatever it is, and by measuring the shadow that the sun makes on it, they determined it was, I think, at least 5 miles tall on series. So it looks good on there. Okay. So we'll just pop out the chat.
Hopefully that was that fly that was buzzing around. Sorry.
So I've got one person watching. Now that's been unusual because I haven't streamed for a while. But that's okay. I've got a lot to say anyway.
I got the notification.
Oh, so you're watching it right now?
I just signed in. I just came here.
Let's see if now it still says one is watching. But
There might be
that's,
something wrong.
we don't know how long it updates.
Usually it goes pretty quick.
Um, it's been live for 5 minutes.
Anyway,
Now it's 4 watching.
yeah, like I said.
Okay. We're just curious whether the app was working right. Usually there's a few folks that sign in almost right away. So, yeah, T and Do were uniquely above the and beyond human and space alien in science and religious atheist mind. That's a whale of a hello, Kathy Western colors. You're so far away. I'm talking to you through the satellite,
The satellites.
and you're sitting right next to me. Thank goodness. Okay, so I gotta put this back up. So what I got posted there is I'm not gonna just dive into that topic right away. Well, maybe I will because some of the people that might want to tune in might want be more interested in what tapes I'm covering, talking about. So that makes me want to go to something I have about a question I was asked that stimulated that response of making that kind of a title, that they were unique in all ways. And the biggest way that I was talking about in terms of them being unique um, was in their actually not being human, being non-human. It's not really anti-human because as if they are anti what human is. They are above human. They're non-human. They're not human anymore. They're not. What's that? Yes, they're beyond human, like the title of that they'll put on the videotape series. And that's just not a saying. That's not just a projection. They prove it. They prove it. It's in all their tapes. It's in all their materials. And that's why it's so hard to grasp. That's why it's so hard to conceive of, especially when you get into the details. When you get into the details, it's harder to buy. It's easier to buy as a philosophy, I think, because it's got all kinds of terminology that that many of us haven't ever seen put together the way they do. Even though it reflects things that we all have been having some relationship with a lot of times through movies and TV and society and throughout. So you can see commonality in many things, but they weren't anti-family. They were anti. They were they were a new family, and so they're not anti-family for humans. Because human kingdom, Doe said it in the Beyond Human tapes. He says, uh, if everybody joined at the same time, it would deplete the human kingdom. See, that's the next level answer. It would deplete the human kingdom to have, if you could theorize that everybody should be able to join the next level, at the same time, everybody's in the same place. I had a response, a comment that was made to something I posted on Facebook that was saying that everybody is equal spiritually. And the only way I can see that as having some truth to it is that we all have the same capacity. I mean, relatively speaking, we all have similar capacities to comprehend more or less. And unless we have experiences that show us something different from what we previously understood, then we don't think that there is anything else that's different, unless we're exposed to it through what's considered to be science fiction, or which is writings as well, which is parapsychology, and everything that goes back all the generations, and witchcraft, and whatever it was called, that was dealing with what I call the entire body of science and pseudoscience of the mind. And pseudoscience would be the fake mind, which would be the mind that uh, doesn't lead you by following to becoming beyond human. And of course, that's a huge generality that has because it doesn't lead to becoming human if, like for instance, if somebody is not asking in some way, shape, or form, then in their daily life or in the way they're living and whatever they're doing, seeking more information, seeking more truth from what's happening in the world. That's all forms of asking. You want to know more. You want to see what's real and what's not. When people have that mindset, the next level has ways of giving them evidence of things that are true or more true. Because it's not always a matter of black and white. Like you could have a statement or a paragraph and it could have 10 different parts to it, depending on the keywords used, right? So that's why it's not, like black and white. Anyway, the way I look at it anyway. But so we're all determining what is, we're all potentially on the road or not. And it's all going to be in degrees, different times, different days of the week, different months of the year, off and on and off. I think that's the way it is for all of us. Anyway, I'm getting off the track, but I could be wrong about what I'm saying now. But I'll get back on the track to where I'm more confident with what I'm saying. And that is that um, the examples of uh, how the next level, Tiendo and crew, are above human in all ways in terms of behavior is one of the first things that they were required to do when they joined was no longer think about their family and friends after they got in contact and told them what they were doing and whatever words they could choose to express that. And then they were willing to, at that point, to go with the flow of that. And, and that was their lesson step. When the older members are present, just like in the Jesus time where Jesus said, "Come and follow me," he said that wasn't casual. Anybody that thinks that was casual just hasn't learned yet how it was not casual. It was planned. There were souls associated with those vehicles. So when they heard the voice, the mind actually, the terminology, but not just the terminology, the presence of mind, the power, the force of mind that doesn't come across as yelling at you. It doesn't come across in any of those human ways that humans show for us. Doesn't threaten you, just tells you what's true and what you can be a part of if you want to give your all to it. See, that's another thing. They required your all. They weren't looking for a temporary setup to where everybody could, come to the information at their own pace. It had to be a stepped up pace because Tiendo had a job to do. And it wasn't an uncaring job. And it wasn't a job that was without a lot of emotion, ups and downs, but dealing with all the things of the human kingdom. That's why they actually come with their soul bodies, their physical, plasma like soul bodies, and take over human vehicles that were prepared to be taken over because not because they are uh, better than others, but because they had the characteristics that the returning souls needed to experience to finish their overcoming through. Overcoming meaning, the religious terminology, which would be actually graduating to be a new being in a new realm, a new evolutionary level above human, where they work on spacecrafts that are laboratories. And in those laboratories, the Earth Lab is the laboratory, and the Weather Lab is a laboratory for the Earth, and many other laboratories. So that's what the actual goal is in our minds. And they're so powerful, and they're so unique, and they're so able to uh, uh, be like, they depicted in Star Trek when the people with the better technology were able to just, hover over those that didn't have the ability to recognize them as being there, and they could actually decide how they might be able to help that civilization. That that idea didn't come from humans. That idea, as all the good ideas, come from the next level. They even provide the ideas, and then they leave the ideas that are against them to those space alien souls. So they're above the space aliens because the space aliens are still human equivalents in their behaviors and ways. They're self-interested. I think I can say that without a doubt. I'm not saying they can't change. I don't know I'm not their judge. But I'm just trying to show the characteristics that are not characteristics of a member of the next level. Because members of the next level are not self-interested. But does that mean that they don't have any self-interest in what they're doing? Yes, of course they do. Like someone asked me, mentioned that. I mean, I responded to a question about that. That like I joined. The idea was that I joined in 1975, or whenever somebody joined, because I was self-interested in what I was going to get from that group, right? Which is the way most people look at stuff, right? I agree. But it's not always spoken. I don't think it's not always thought of consciously. But of course, there's got to be a natural self-interest. But that self-interest could be in being more interested in what's coming from somebody else than what's coming from, which of course is obvious in the human kingdom, happens all the time in our jobs and relationships and everything. But in this sense, it's recognition that there's somebody that's outside the human kingdom, that's more powerful, that has overview, that wouldn't have just made this planet and the life forms on it to be as beautiful as they are, so functional as they are, without purpose. That would be like, saying humans do things, build skyscrapers without purpose. It's silly. So it's common sense that that's the case, because humans know that they didn't create this place. So it's common sense that some place created it. It came about somehow, even with all the big bangs. probably lots of big bangs happening. And lots of progression of amoebas into whatever their next step is in evolution, and then onward and onward and onward, and then the next level with the laboratories that they have, they come in, they step in, they come with their spacecrafts, whatever they have to do, come on the surface, take samples, whatever they do, in order to determine whether one species might be, I'm just making something up now, might be a link to uh, a human equivalent that could actually grow to be a human that could then recognize that all those dots out in outer space aren't by chance. Some of them maybe many of them are, or in relationship to random development. Like if two planets smash into each other and they become a billion particles, even rocks and boulders and everything. Well, that's uh, each one going to be exactly the same size? No, everything has kind of got a uniqueness to it. It seems like the more our sciences dive into the things that are microscopic, and the more that we look with telescopes into the things that are out there in space, and the more we understand the systems that we have here. It's all a process of growth, but that growth can become strictly human, or it can grow to become above human. And it's the same pathway. I mean, it doesn't mean that somebody that takes one pathway can't switch at any time to another pathway, vice versa. Because there's always free will. People think that because they use some keywords that were fantastical, that was like receiving candy to join with them and get the benefit of what, eternal life on a spacecraft somewhere in outer space. Okay, well that didn't really mean anything to me at the time. Uh, Maybe it did in my core. I would imagine it does, but to me that was just okay. Well, I mean, I didn't think about it at all. Eternal life, wanting eternal life. No, what I saw actually, was other things in the poster. I'm not going to get into that right now, but if you want to read about it, you can go to my blog at sawyerhg.wordpress.com, and under the story Sawyer's Story, which was the beginning of like an autobiography that never got off the ground very much. Has kind of the beginning and the end, but doesn't have the current or the middle much. Anyway, so but it's so that's like overview talk. I know, um, uh, but so the family is totally different for the next level, and Jesus talked about this when he was asked. For those of you that don't know about those record books, uh, when he was asked, when he was told, well, I don't know if he was talking to people or what he was doing at the moment, but he was told by, I think, one of his disciples that his mother and brother were waiting to talk to him and visit with him, I guess. And he said, who is my mother and who is my brother but these who are doing the will of my Father? So he was right away talking about, sorry, I am talking too loud. He was right away talking about um, his family in the next level, from out in outer space, in the best terms he could at that moment for that period of time in the civilization that was preparatory for the graduation. And the graduation means that's the time to give your all. And uh, when the older members are present, is the prime time for that, because that's when the students that are ready to do that are around, taking vehicles that were prepared for them to use to finish their overcoming and to deposit thoughts. And it was a big part of that for everybody else. It wasn't meant to be a graduation class of everybody at the same time. So I would hope, I would wish for people to not be offended by the idea that they aren't as evolved as the members of the class. And that doesn't include me in my mind, uh, because I lost a big chunk of mind when I left. Otherwise, I would have probably gone back when I had the opportunities. Anyway, so that's another demonstration of how it's free will, that I had opportunities to return that were very. And I'm not going to go into them now either, because I usually do, and I want to get on to other things. But uh, yeah, it's a tough one, to be told that a lot of things are tough. You know, if you believe something most of your life, and then someone tells you that uh, it wasn't correct, well, you're not going to really want to listen to that person. And that's another thing that happened with T and Doe. They weren't always saying the things that were. I mean, they didn't use a lot of eye candy. And if you look at the amount of times that they talked about philosophical things or next level things, and how next level did things, and and things about the world, or I don't even know about the world. I can't say for sure, but events in the world. I mean, they did talk about that a little bit, relative, but most of the class, uh, probably 75, 80%, 90%, I don't know what it is, the number, but was about the students taking over their human vehicles and making them totally obedient to what they wanted to do with those vehicles. And what they wanted to do was become members of the next level. They wanted to be with their older members. That's really the bottom line, because they knew them. They met them. They were with them. They had their energy, some of it. And and that's always a growth process for everybody. And we can all have their energy, but it doesn't come for nothing. You know, you got to work at it, because the forces of this world don't want you to have their energy. And so they'll look for every reason under the book to distract you from it, from reaching for their energy, for their mind, for their frequencies, for their choices on doing things. And it's nice when you see people making good choices, I think. Like on occasion, we saw somebody in Washington, D.C., talking about Jesus, and that, if you do it, if you do it to the least of these, you're doing it to me, kind of thinking. And the way that people were being treated, not only there, but other places, of course, all over the world, that's the case. There's people that are mistreating people that they see as less than them, or in circumstances that are less than their circumstances. And it's actually it is it is normal, actually, but it's we're fortunate now that we get to see it happening, and see the ways that we can, that there's possibilities of growth involved in everything. Even the negative forces provide us with the growth. That's why we grow, because the space alien souls have minds, and those minds can actually be projected down on us, and they're stronger minds than human minds because they did gain some membership in the next level. That took a lot of growth of mind to get to that point, even though they flunked out, or not flunked out, but left. And it's not that they left was the most terrible thing. The most terrible thing is they left and then they went against the next level. And so that's what made them into, they basically put themselves into the recycling. I don't know who those are exactly, but anyway, so and it's not my intention to talk on those terms because it sounds so stupid really in some ways to think that way, but at the same time, I believe it is a picture of reality, a degree of a picture of what is real. And I believe that because I know I can trust what Tiendo taught. And not that my mind was capable of having the experience to know those kind of things before I met Tiendo. And so I can be, fooled and tricked and everything, and I am sometimes. And but anyway, I just wanted to be clear, because I've been accused of, trying to start something. Somebody asked on Reddit, uh, Reddit Heaven's Gate, if there was going to be another cult uh, um, meeting in Memphis area, and I'm not allowed to comment there anymore, so I didn't say anything about it. But someone did say something about it, and um, they didn't correct the person at all because there is no cult,
What are
Heaven's
they
Gate
talking
cult.
about a meeting?
Yeah, he was. The person did pass on that we had previous meeting, and they posted the flyer that was posted for that meeting.
We didn't have a meeting in Memphis.
No, it wasn't in Memphis. But so the person said he thought that we stopped having meetings, which wasn't exactly true. We just don't have another one right now.
We are going to have one in November.
Right, we're going to have a meeting in November, actually. Right, but
Well, it's not like a meeting just for,
no, it's a meeting about cults in general. So they're gonna, I don't know who we're gonna be. I'm gonna be sitting next to talking about it, but Wanodi and I, and probably Carlodi will probably be there.
next
Next level willing, right? And
and I'll be there, but I'm just going to be running the table.
right, Kathy's gonna be there running the table. Sorry,
It wasn't your voice, it was that.
I know, I know. I was shaking my leg.
Anyway.
Kathy's trying to color.
And when he
It's
shakes the
nervous
leg,
energy that my vehicle always has.
when he shakes his leg, it shakes the whole RV. So
Yeah,
I don't care if he shakes his leg on solid, but we're not ever on solid
we're on 8 posts.
ground.
4 of them are tires. Actually, there's 2 more tires because we got double tires in the back. But anyway, so I just went. Let's see. So there is no
There's no clue.
new cult, and and even if there was a new cult,
And
it wouldn't look like we.
I have to say that 100 fucking times.
It wouldn't look like us. Yeah, we got to repeat it all the time because there's
Over
always
and
somebody saying
over
it.
and over. It's
That's right.
ridiculous.
That's part of what we got to do if we address it. And I do want to
Nobody
address it.
listens to what we say.
I know, but everybody doesn't. Most people don't hear what we say. This is on Reddit, so this was somebody that didn't even know about. So that was something good that was in the moderators' comment to it. They did, provide that poster that showed little old me talking in my young vehicle in the next, in the Beyond Human series, I think.
Yeah, the one that.
when I was a helper to Doe and for those segments of that series. Anyway, so uh, what other things stand out um, in being unique about T and Doe's teachings? That not only were they family, but they were teaching celibacy. For their students to graduate, that was a requirement of mind and body. And so how is that something? I'm bringing this up in relationship to the person that was asking me, was saying to me that the students were kind of, uh, given some kind of ideas that stimulated their desire to become something, I guess, and because of that, they ended up being with the group. And that was the case for some, yes, when they joined. But to maintain that without any evidence, without any constant bringing that up again, whatever that eye candy was in terminology, uh, is I would say uh, it might as well be impossible because in the classroom, now maybe and humans do it all the time. I think, where they. Uh, I'm a human too. I'm just talking about the human kingdom in general. You have to keep your people interested in things, right? Anyway, if you want to have good workers, and so you have to appeal to the things that they want, to be appealed to, whether it's being paid enough or, a whole bunch of host of things. But the next level is the opposite. You find out that all the things that appeal to humans don't appeal to the older members. They don't want people to remain in the human condition. But when I say that they don't want, it's not that they want us to, like in a controlling kind of way. It's not a control. It's knowing that if you don't learn their behaviors and ways, you can't be among them. You're going to be thinking things that they're not going to be thinking, and people are going to hear your thoughts, and and that doesn't mean they all think the same either. See, that's another misconception that everybody becomes a robot. Not at all. It's the opposite of that, actually. We're more robots. We're not, I mean, more robots. We are robots, where the next level members are real for the first time. They're individuals for the first time.
Have
Go
you
to the
gotten
chat.
into the tape yet?
No, I haven't, and I want to. So should I do that before I go to the chat? Because there's other points to that I want to get into, but maybe because there's a number of things. There's like a host of differences that you will find throughout all the cults, I believe. I don't think anybody
Yeah,
can
you might as well just go to the chat.
provide me with evidence of the same um, format, the same. The spontaneous design of Tiendo.
You're going to the chat.
Yes, chat. Where are you? Here you are. So, yes, let's see. So, testing. Oh, yeah, that's Kathy. So, Casey says, hi, Brother Sawyer and Sister Kathy. Lovely day today in Wisconsin. Rain and humidity, but not too hot. Yeah, it's pretty humid here, yeah. Down where we are in Cincinnati area. But, so yeah. And Joseph Coates says, "Hey there, Sawyer." And Kathy says, "Hi, Casey," on the chat. Okay, Casey says, "My browser crashed and had to restart my PC back in." Hi, Kathy. And it says, "That is from Matthew."
Oh, the verse that you were saying.
Oh, yeah,
That
right.
the normal
That
thing I was
verse. Thank
talking
you.
about.
Thank you for that. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's repeated in one of the other books too. I don't know for sure. But anyway, wasn't that the Sermon on the Mount? Maybe I don't know. I get that mixed up now because I don't stick with it every day, so you kind of lose it. But Casey says, when Jesus spoke to a king, what you do unto the less fortunate, you do so unto me. Not those exact words, but close. Yes, right. And Heather Craven says, were they cremated or buried? I don't know. That was the individual choice of each individual's vehicle's human family.
But you do know some.
Well, I know that T was cremated because she asked to be cremated.
I actually thought, according to Mark and Sarah in that meeting that we had, he said all of the bodies were cremated because they were worried about poison, and that all of the articles of clothing on them, including the shrouds, were cremated as well.
That's right. They
And
did say
that's why
that.
he said anybody that's claiming to have shrouds or uniforms that the actual class members were wearing is totally uh, lying, because none of that exists, because
But they might have
everything
had
was
backup
I
uniforms.
know, but that's why I said anything that the class members were wearing, the shoes, the anything,
Right, right.
none of that,
It's not going to be exactly
none of
what they
that
were wearing,
exists.
according to that.
All of that was burned.
That
They
makes
were,
sense.
all of them was like the bedding, everything.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be too quick to buy those things.
Yeah.
But
So
then,
I don't
if you
look.
bought them, then you'd be able to say that they represent what they were wearing,
I think and I could be very wrong about this, but I believe that they were cremated, and then if maybe they wanted to have the ashes buried, is what happened. I don't think any of their bodies are actually buried anywhere. I
Hmm.
could be really wrong about that though, but according to what Mark and Sarah said,
The way we interpreted
they
them.
were cremated.
Yeah. I remember that now that Kathy brings it up. I just, for some reason, it didn't stick with me very well.
Stuff with me because they were, trying to shock us. I think, or they're trying to shock me.
Yeah, because you were bringing up the subject of
Well, I asked.
somebody had bought the clothing or something, right?
I can't. I don't even
Oh, it
remember.
doesn't matter.
I don't recall why they mentioned that.
Right, T was cremated and ashes were scattered over a lake in Texas. That's right, it's White Rock Lake. I was in the house that was where T left when, so yeah, that's right. That's what, uh, not everybody went to it during that scattering of the lake, of the ashes in the lake. Oh, I think it was June Odie and Log Odie and Liv Odie and Jan Odie, and that might be it. I'm not sure though, because it wasn't my task. So I just remember those being, though, telling us that they went over it. They did that. Casey thinks that Doe's vehicle was cremated as well. And old school Dave says, "Sorry, I'm late, buddies." Hello. Well, you're right on time. I mean, how do you be right on time when you don't know what's coming, right? All of a sudden, out of the blue, we come on in with a live stream. Actor Michael Merchant. Hope you are both doing well. Thank you. I hope you are as well. Uh, is that a Spider-Man? Is that one of the things that you did? Is
Oh my gosh, I saw a big huntsman spider
Oh, a big huntsman spider we saw yesterday.
yesterday. Massive.
I don't think Kathy got a picture of it because
No,
I had to
she
run in to get the phone.
she jumped back on the wheel. Oh
Anyway, so Casey says Margaret Jane Bull. I forgot her Odie name. Sunodi. She was buried and she has a find a grave. Oh, is that right?
yeah, but according to might be just her ashes
I guess that's possible.
because they do bury cremains.
Hmm. So right. So Casey was saying not everybody in the class was cremated, but we don't know if that was the case yet. I don't know if you can tell if you can go to that find a grave and see if they were burying ashes or a body. If they give you that distinction, I think they might.
Yeah, I don't know.
He said, "Oh." And then, yeah, they do have cremated people with plots and headstones,
Yeah,
right? So he knows
absolutely.
that. Knows that.
Yeah, I know that, but I don't know if there's an indication. I do know, well, and the only reason why I know this is because I watched like this thing on burying um, prisoners. Because when prisoners die and there's nobody to claim their bodies, they cremate them, and then like once a year or once every 5 years or something. And this is specifically on Rikers Island. And they buried them on like this island, like off of New York. It was really interesting, but um, they would take all of the boxes of cremated people. They would make the prisoners do this, and they had this big, they would actually like they dug this huge like grave, and they would dump all of the cremains in it, and then they had one big huge headstone with like, for the prisoners, they didn't, I don't know if they got their individual names on it, but like for like just a one person, you
Hmm.
would get a headstone. But I don't know if like it would, if the plot is as big, or so like that might indicate.
Oh,
I
really?
don't know. I haven't done that much
Hmm.
research on it. I've spent a lot of time in cemeteries, so you think I would know, but because I have looked at a lot of headstones, I haven't seen any indication that there is on any headstones that they're cremated remains. But that could just be, I've only looked,
Well,
I'm
Casey says that they do on that website.
that it says if they're, if it's cremated or not, if you're
Yeah, well,
cremated.
he's saying that they do have cremated people with plots and headstones.
I know. But
I
I'm
think.
just saying I don't know if the plot is way smaller, and if on the
Oh,
headstone it indicates that they are cremated and not a body actually
yeah.
buried there. That's
I
what
don't
I'm
know.
saying.
Right, I don't know
I don't
about
know
that.
if there's, some indication of that.
So yeah, Sooner was the name that Tsunodi took when she joined, or shortly after she joined at some point, and that became, you know, made into Sunodi, Snody. That's correct. And
Great.
Casey says that Iris Odie is YRSODY is at Oak Grove Cemetery in Amagansett, Suffolk County, New York.
Well, so that answers that question.
Yeah, I might not be pronouncing her name right. Irisody?
Aerosody?
YRSODY.
Because, oh, she
I
was
met
in the
her.
class after you left, or?
No, she joined in 1994 because she came into the group that I was with holding meetings in 1994. She joined up with us. But I think she had joined someplace else and she was sent to be with us for a little while to give her more experience with other students. That
The party is starting out there. 107 is the light. So we already talked. You already talked about the, what was it, 279? We just listened to that, didn't we?
Wait a minute, sorry, what?
No, oh, nothing. You were distracted.
I was just, that is interesting to me, Casey, that you said that uh, Gail's headstone said YRSODY, because that would have been probably, I don't know if that would have been her wishes or not, but that's definitely who she was at that moment that she left her vehicle, even though that represents the soul of that vehicle, that name. Anyway, so I'm going to move on with that. I'm going to go back to the, well, I didn't get, not really back to it. I want to go to the tape that we listed here. And for anybody that's new to this broadcast, I got on my screen there that these are Sawyer's rough notes for audio 278 EB, which is was recorded on November 29th, 1987, and has to do with various subjects, starting with the things I'm not going to talk about because I talked about them last time, with the reality of spiritual bodies, ministering to spirits, spirit body is perfect, and if in control of the vehicle, it would be healed completely. How to apply this understanding, healers, when to say I, change how you think of yourself, how far can we heal these vehicles. Anyway, that's the content of the tape. And I guess I am going to be talking about one of the things in there, of course, because I skipped down to the part where Doe is saying, in my rough notation of, that he thought we talked about the other day at a meeting about when we talk to the church, who are we ministering to? And this, you'd have to get some background that at that time in 1987, they were talking about having a type of church. But they probably weren't even going to call it church. They never did actually call it a church. And it changed from what they talked about here. But anyway, so they wanted to know who in that group of people in the human kingdom were they going to be trying to minister to? In other words, provide their information to in some way, shape, or form. And so Pam Odie answered that question with those who have percentage of next level mind. And Doe said true, but there was something else he was looking for. And then Jim Odie said something, and I forgot what he said, and I didn't write it down because I was going too fast. So I'm going to skip over it, but if you want to hear Jim Odie's voice, you'll hear him in the tape there at that spot. And then Doe says, maybe even before Jim Odie actually, what form are they in? What form are they in? Talking about the ones that they are wanting to talk to, that they are planning to minister to. What form are they in? So Havodi then says, uh, in response to the first part of the question, the ones with a lot of force, which Doe talks about as true. That is part of it's another thing. But then Havodi says spirits, question mark. And that was correct. That was what, I mean, not correct. I mean, they're all correct, but this was most correct for what Doe was trying to get at. Because then he talks about it a little bit, and I'm going to try to read some of it. Because he was giving us this to help us talk to people that would come to our little outpost that we were making. Because I was there at the time, so I'm using the word our in that regard. But, and an outpost was basically an office with some students manning it in a different location from where the main residences were. The main, we called them crafts. And, short for spacecrafts, even though they weren't spacecrafts. And we knew they weren't spacecrafts, but they were providing us with uh, identification with that thinking to help our vehicles adjust. Because, right from the beginning, they talked about that, they preferred and they planned on leaving with their vehicles. And that was always a possibility, but the vehicles would have had to be changed over. That's what the media won't tell you about that. That's what that meant. It wasn't that they could remain exactly the way they were when they joined, and but the next level, the way they think, is that you can move as quickly as you are able to move. You can, like some people might have heard Tiendo talk and decided, well, that's interesting. I'll look into that more. And other people felt like, wow, this is something I want to do. I happened to be one of those people that said, wow, this is something I want to do. It's like, wow, this is amazing kind of thing, But I didn't actually think the word amazing. I just thought I wanted to do it. It was simple as that. But it was a recognition of their mind. It wasn't just in the words. I was telling somebody earlier today in a comment that it wasn't just the words. There was something to them that um, felt like you could trust it. And I do trust it. I still trust it. I always hope I trust it. The next level mind. Anyway, so Doe is describing the spirits, to use that terminology, because they didn't use that terminology. It was a mind. They always spoke in terms of our mind, and they said it was synonymous with the word spirit. And that was another thing that was kind of unique about T and O, is that they didn't use very, very little religious terminology. Uh, um, I mean, their first description of the next level was the evolutionary level above human. So I had no religious terminology in that at all. No spiritual terminology, evolution. In other words, but they were also talking about evolution of mind. See, that's where some people that are staunch scientists of the physical realms can be missing that there's also a mental realm. And actually, the mental realm is what's in control of the physical realm. And it comes from it as well. And it's what's evolving, potentially, or devolving to become more animalistic. Anyway, I'll move on with, and in talking about the spirits, he's talking about the pillowcases. That's at the time what he called the soul. He called it a pillowcase, or he used the term pocket, interchangeable. And he didn't use the word soul much. because he hadn't yet understood that the soul was also, well, I'm not saying why. The reason he didn't use soul was because uh, he didn't feel like that was the term to use with us. It's as simple as that. I mean, he probably has reasons in his mind why it doesn't depict, because it's got a religious background, and the religious background is less real to us, even though we don't necessarily see that. At least I don't. I don't realize how I'm affected in the programming from the religion. But I learned that while I was in the classroom, not, and I learned that from being in the classroom. I didn't learn, and from after the classroom as well. And that's where it sunk in for me even more. That I had some religiosity with me while I was in the classroom. Anyway, and it's not that, like it was banned to use those terms. It wasn't. But if you were going to use terms that that T and O older members weren't using, that would be like trying to do a different experiment in the chemistry lab. And I want to add a little bit of this ingredient and this ingredient, because everything that we did was considered to be part of the experiment. Even though there's things that are trite and there's things that are insignificant.
Mundane.
Yeah, and the things that are mundane that's another thing that was very different about it. That even if you were attracted by the terminology in the beginning, pretty soon things became, I started to talk about this before, become so mundane that you're not getting that stimulus anymore. And so boredom can creep in. Okay? And one example of boredom that Doe referred to in this tape, 278, was what Riccodi went through. 279? No,
That's what you
278.
said at the beginning. That's the
Oh,
last tape we listened to.
Reality of Spiritual Bodies? No, this isn't the last one. This is the one before that we listened to,
I,
I think. 278, yeah. Because I wanted to continue with that.
I see.
I had it set up right in that
Gotcha.
spot. Yeah, I wouldn't mind on touching on something from that other tape. I'll go look for it before this is over. Because we get too far behind. Because we're going to listen to another tape in the next day or two, I'm sure. So let's go a little further here. So pillowcase, uh, and this is where he's also talking about mind and spirit being synonymous. And it's important to get our minds straight uh, um, on the fact that, and this is a clincher. I mean, not a clincher, but a really interesting part of the subject that was, when I heard it this time, was like, wow, I didn't really get it back then. And that is that he said that what we're trying to get straight is that spirit has shape. Spirit has shape. And it has more than that. The gallbladder has a spirit, mind. The gallbladder has mind. All of our parts have mind. They all have individual mind. It's not like it's an overlay of the same mind. Well, maybe in some ways it is. I don't know. But it's actually, those cells became what they became because of that programming, that mind that uh, I guess develops, well, I believe develops with that organism. It's part of what life is. So it's our genes. But the mind, but the mind is not the physical component of the genes. It's uh, um, the emanation of the genes. It's I forgot how they described it. But let me go. Let me read a little bit more what he's talking about, and maybe some of the better keywords will come out. Up. He said the eyeballs, everything the physical body can have, but in the invisible, and that puts the brain in a place to say in the invisible as you think. Oh, okay, yeah. It gives the ability of the brain to say in the invisible, to think of it as less than it is. We even have the option to think of it as less than it is. So let's say you have a spiritual body, not just outlined, not just the outside of it, the shape, but every cell of the body, everything that is living. What is not living, what is not living on a spiritual body? Doe asks. Lagodi says hair, flesh, teeth, and Doe says hair, yes, but flesh is alive. So Doe is saying that, uh, and teeth, yes. No, teeth's not alive either, I don't think. Which I don't know. I'm not sure I understood that correctly. But
I suppose if you didn't need to be chewing and eating, then you wouldn't need teeth.
right. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know why
And
hair
we don't
and
have
teeth.
digestive. If there's no digestive, then I guess you don't need
Oh,
teeth.
then he gives more details about it. He says, what's not alive, what is not living on a spiritual body. He says, whatever the little creatures on a spacecraft don't have, that's what's not part of the spiritual body. Interesting. Oh, so, right, he's not saying that they're not alive, I guess, in some way, shape, or form. I mean, they grow and they decay, or they can, you know, do that. But members of the next level don't have it. They don't have teeth. Doesn't mean they don't consume something if they need to, like a pill once in a while, or sit under light.
Well, and I wouldn't say 100% that they don't have teeth because we don't
Well,
we don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's their conversation was pretty flippant at that point.
yeah, maybe I misapplied that part. But they don't have hair. That I know. Because that's what Doe said. Hail, yes, but flesh is alive. But he didn't address teeth yet at that point. I don't know if he.
I don't know if it's necessary to make a. I don't know. The only reason why I'm saying is I wouldn't say unequivocally that next level members do not have teeth because they can have any kind of body. We have no idea if they have teeth or not. And Doe didn't know all of the kind of bodies that next level members had either. Many, many times he said that. He said, we're just imagining here.
Right, but right.
We're just
So
supposing. So it's not like
yeah,
he was saying next level members 100% do not have teeth.
right, right.
So I wouldn't make the statement
Okay,
next level members do not
that's
have
fair
teeth.
enough.
That's
That's
the only
fair
reason
enough.
why
No, that's fair enough. I so yeah, so but they don't consume the way that we consume, so they don't necessarily have a reason unless they're incarnate.
yeah, I don't really think,
I mean, take a human body.
we're not going to know ever unless we're in the next level or we see, we're not going to know. So I don't really know if there's much value of
All right.
trying to debate on if they have teeth or not or what they may or may not have on their bodies.
Well, but that is part of this tape,
I know. So like
and
just
hair was part of that.
just say what he's
So I
saying.
don't want to expand it from that, and I want to try to stick to what he's talking about. Uh, but yeah, okay, we made that. We got that. So he's talking about, like, let's see, when we talk about the body separating from the mind from the body, in a sense, the period separating has also caused us necessary transition problems, particularly if he gets to the point to where he's thinking that I am nothing but the mind or spirit filled with mind of my Father. Therefore, any negativity is foreign to me. That causes us certain problems because Lucy is very interested in the body and using the body and keeping you from taking over the body. And in some ways, somewhere, sometimes we make it easier for Lucy to take over the body. I don't know. I know this is too complicated to really talk about for me because I don't have the exact words and I'm not expressing them the way that Doe expresses them. And so I suggest that if you really want to understand what I just said, you need to listen to the tape. But he was settling in this tape of calling, using the terminology spiritual body, because the people that he'd be talking to would have that an easier time understanding. It wasn't like the way that humans will choose words to be deceptive, to manipulate people, but it was using certain words to stop them from being manipulated, uh, from thinking about things that the way that they think of things. So I mean, so like if you go to somebody that's a sworn atheist and you say anything, use the word spiritual, right away their brain can be turning off to anything else you're saying because they think that you're coming at it from this illusionary kind of position. And the same thing with a religionist when somebody's talking about uh, the brain working in certain ways, or brain waves, or they can now. There's been a merger of the two. There's a lot of people out there that are equally as interested in science as they are in their religion. So things have been getting better in that regard, but there's always some people, of course, that are going to be one extreme or the other in their terminology and their understanding. And some people with what's occupying the brain of a human, with what can be from the higher minds that people can be reaching for in different ways, higher ways of doing things, more better ways of doing things, um, trying to be more like what they believe a civilized human is. Being more humanitarian would be part of that. Would be the most kind of civilized human being, which can also have its form of trap into humanness, especially when the older members are present, which they're not right now, except to the degree that we have their tapes and we have a big, big chunk of their mind with us. And that mind works, I think, for everything that we need if we want to go in that direction. So what he's saying here is that if you get your mind into your next level mind, into your spiritual body, into every organ of every cell, and if it's rightly placed, it would give perfect life to your physical body. But because of the conflicts of your physical body and other spiritual bodies, discarnates, thought forms, space alien mind, they cause the body to have trouble. And so it's all percentages of how much of the non-next level mind we each have in us at any given moment. So I mean, like, it's not something that I don't think we can measure, but we can choose to have more next level mind when we ask the older members to uh, help us with something. And, so you're not asking for their mind; you're asking for help with something. You're asking for the strength for some reason, to overcome something, whether it's addiction or whatever it is um, that you want to overcome. So so the overcoming process is another big, big, big perspective when it's actually got details to it that are very, very difficult but are doable. Um, but it's a big perspective of how different the next level program is, the classroom of the next level is from everything else in the human kingdom. Even though there's aspects of the human kingdom that are also overcoming human vehicles, like for overcoming an addiction, is an example of having next level mind enough to where you take control of the vehicle to overcome that addiction. And so picture that times whatever number of other areas of humanness that need to make a certain amount of headway for our minds to develop to overcome. And you can see what those things are composed of in practical terms in the two lists that are in Heaven's Gate book. And one of them is the major offenses, and the other one is the minor, no, not minor, the lesser offenses. And they were all offenses to somebody that was trying to only have next level mind in them. And of course, they all were offenses based on Tiando's teachings of what were offenses. But you will see, you can see in those lists how those offenses, well, I could say most of them relate to uh, being human as opposed to a next level member. So a next level member wouldn't be jealous, for example, of somebody else. Or if they were jealous, I think Tiendo did talk to this. If they were jealous, it would be jealous for the right reasons. Of that, you want to be closer to your older member. You want to have tasks that your older member, more tasks, not just number, but you just want to always have tasks to do that your older member is giving you to do. It's fun to do them. I mean, it's not only fun, it's rewarding, it's fulfilling. You see results, you interface with other crew members, and you enjoy doing that, and you're working on helping humans in a capacity that humans don't even have any awareness is happening, unless they go into the spiritual realms in their mind, which is correct to do, because the next level isn't helping us in the visible world when they could even be physically among us with their physical bodies that humans aren't capable of seeing because they can do something with the light. I don't know exactly how they do it, but their body is made up of materials that are different than flesh bodies, human flesh bodies, and so they have different functions available to them to even appear invisible. I don't know if they would still block out what was behind them. I don't know, that was the case. Anyway, what gives the spiritual body only goodness? The living force is what he was talking about it as. It's the electricity, it's the mind, it's the knowledge from his father, his older member, his from T. Then it's perfect, is in perfect health, functions therefore uh, uh, like to where he was saying to Samodi that uh, you are in perfect health, speaking to her spiritual body because that's what she is at that point in the classroom, and it's in degrees, but you can recognize the differences. Doe was able to recognize the differences. I can't recognize the differences. I mean, I haven't so far. I mean, other people, I know that Kathy recognizes things about people sometimes that I think is true that I don't recognize because I just haven't developed that skill. I guess didn't come with me in my genes, but and so Doe was able to recognize uh, the perfect health of the soul called Samodi that was occupying the body. They were talking about the spiritual body or soul. Uh, the only thing that's less than perfect health is if Samodi, in this example, has a period of confusion because her spirit body is influenced by negative spiritual bodies and she lets them speak through her spiritual body. So that means if it's not something that you're occurring to you in your mind that you learned that T and Do would think and say, then you don't let your body do it. That's where restraint comes in. And so, for example, a member of the next level uh, wouldn't generally talk in authoritarian terms, or in, no, that's not the best word for it, but in terms that they were absolutely sure of, because they would be open to seeing more in that subject in their minds. That's the way they are. And so, and that's why we got the lesson of I could be wrong, and to try to imprint that in our vehicles to recognize that our choices might not be the best choices. There are better choices than other choices. And those better choices, if they're related to a choice that your older members would make, like for instance, treating others the way that you want to be treated. Okay, that's another way that Jesus was talking about that principle. Of the least of these, treating the least of these the same way that you would treat the ones that the humans call the greatest of them, because they're really not necessarily the greatest. You could have somebody that's in the least in that city, even if they're homeless or whatever they are, but to the next level, they may have really done a good job conquering something, and they were having something trouble with something else or whatever. It doesn't mean that they're the other people that appear to be having all the good things, that they're the ones that are accused of doing all these things, with underage children and all that stuff. And that's a big disease. That's a huge disease that not only affects them, but affects those individuals that they are abusing or manipulating, or whatever that way that looks. And so, perfect health would be there would be no abuse of anybody. You wouldn't abuse your body. You wouldn't abuse somebody else's body. You wouldn't say anything to somebody else that could hurt them. If you do say something that could hurt them, you quickly would want to take it back and apologize. And if you could, if you can't, then I don't know what to do about it. But that's where the whole idea of confession came from, of getting your sins out, you know, so that you can have at least have the physical identification of what it takes to do that. Sometimes, that's another big lesson, right? Being willing to admit mistakes, or and of course, sometimes in the human kingdom, you don't want to admit mistakes if they can end up, you know, like if you tell somebody that sometimes you speed, you never know. Like in the job that Kathy and I have, if you told that to somebody, they might say, "Oh, my driver is a speeder, and so I'm going to give him a bad grade." And you get a certain amount of bad grades, and all of a sudden you lose your job. So you don't want to be honest all the time, I guess, in that regard. But
That's right.
there's a practicality to it. It's like what Jesus said about finding agreement with your adversary. So in this case, maybe that's not an adversary, but you don't want to satisfy the influence, the discarnate that might want to cause you trouble, that might come through somebody else in their reporting something you said, if they're having a bad day or something. You never can tell sometimes. So yeah, it's and so this is another big part of the classroom, that if you weren't monitoring every thought, then you weren't going to be addressing all the things that could be negatives that you don't even know are negatives. Like daydreaming about something was a negative, because it's not your task to daydream. Now, if you want to daydream, you can go ahead and daydream, and there was no way for anybody to know about it, except there'd be something missing from the body that you were developing, the spirit body that you were developing, the mind body that you were developing, the plasma like physical mind body that you were developing. Um, it could be missing stuff, and if it's missing too much, then the next level is going to know that you're not strong enough to be able to drive, pilot, use a body that's grown by the next level for you to wear. Because the bodies that are grown by the next level for you to wear, that can be grown on a vine, like a plant, grow into adulthood, so they don't have to start as children, but they're all children in a sense when you become a member of the next level because you're so new to everything. But it doesn't mean that you have to be taught to speak and stuff. That's one of the things you're learning now by having restraint would be learning to speak like next level. But also by only having thoughts that were positive, um, uh, you'd be learning next level ease, next level language, because they wouldn't be. That doesn't mean that they don't see something happening on Earth and that a human might be responding in a negative way to somebody, but it might be actually a positive thing that they're bringing up, but that other person is seeing it as a negative because you're challenging them with their behavior that's not good. It's bad. They're lying or they're deceitful or something and it's hurting people, So to speak up against that, to me, wouldn't be a negative thing except to them. Uh, but it would be a positive thing because the next level does. Uh, let's say you were hurting somebody, like that was you saw somebody hurting them, somebody else. I'm probably getting into too much detail with that. I think you all can figure it out, but you may be way ahead of me in it. But I just I so so doing it in the next level classroom meant you had to do it all the time, and there was somebody watching you all the time because you wanted them to watch you. If you didn't want them to watch you, then you didn't really want to be in the next level because everybody's going to see what you're doing all the time. You're going to have everything that's on your mind is going to be available. So if you're having a negative thought about that person over there, you haven't developed the strength of mind in that department to to block it out. Uh, so we're all potentially learning to do that better and better.
Can I say something?
Yes, please do. I'm sorry.
Everybody, it's Sawyer's birthday tomorrow.
Okay,
And I don't know if he'll be streaming or not. So if you want to wish him a happy birthday.
that's nice of you. Thank you for saying that.
Uh,
Uh, I appreciate that positivity. Even though I don't like the idea of getting older, I don't like the idea of not getting older either. So make the best of it. Okay, so here's some examples of things that the spiritual body wouldn't say. Because remember not remember, but the understanding of what the spiritual body is the soul body, and that it's real, it exists, it grows, it doesn't grow sometimes, depending on the person. And so there's certain things that the spiritual body doesn't have. Like, and Sorority answered that question by saying, I'm tired. Destody said, I'm hungry. I think Soy already said, I'm sad. Jan already said, I'm angry. Because the spirit body, the spiritual body, the soul body, doesn't get tired. And it doesn't get hungry. It doesn't eat. It doesn't get sad. And it doesn't get angry. Or like saying, like Doe says, like saying, I have a headache. I don't feel well or I have flu symptoms. That's not the spiritual body saying that. That doesn't mean that somebody can't say that. There's nothing wrong with saying that. But in this classroom, this is the way that you are training your vehicle to think. And so if you wanted to be there, then you would try to do it the best you could, but there was nobody to know that you weren't doing it. And you would actually gain things by doing it. You would gain actual more perspective of what's true, more recognition of the strength of mind of your older members, because you would be exercising more of that strength of mind. And it's like just like anybody that learns to, conquer an addiction. They learn that they have that strength of mind. It's not a guess anymore. It's not something that influencers can't tell them. They might try. They may say that you're going to be weak, you know, here and there, and it's a strong mind that doesn't put that to the test by challenging those influences and saying, yeah, I can be strong. I can go walk into that place with all those people, and I can be just fine with my sobriety. And you might be, and you might find yourself in circumstances where you realize that you are, but you certainly wouldn't want to put yourself to the test beyond a certain point in that regard. Um, um, well, I'm not going to get into any specific examples. I mean, because society in general, I mean, you could say that you would want to stay away from everything so much so that I guess you would not watch the TV, and not watch, because you see examples of things that were potentially threatening you with your sobriety, with on the TV and the movies and the texting and everything, right? So
That's what
there's
you guys did in the class to some degree.
right. That's what we did do in the class. We limited it so that there was very limited impulses. We didn't go to nightclubs. We didn't go to um,
Places that were going to have stuff.
yeah. We didn't watch sexual movies. We didn't do any.
Or horror movies either.
We didn't even watch horror movies, right? Just was that we didn't have any instructions to watch them, but um, I don't think there's anything wrong with watching one. Yeah, I've watched a bunch of horror movies with Kathy, and some of them are funny. Oh, but they can be funny. I
And
mean,
horrible.
but they can also be horrible. Pretty gross, pretty terrible. Some of that Walking Dead stuff was amazing. Yeah, I guess, and yes, it was. I mean, you'd be on the, I could feel myself tensing up,
Yeah, so
all the
it's such a
time,
good
and
job. I did quite a bit of horror photography, so I look at it a lot differently
yeah,
because I
right,
know it's all fake. Yeah,
right.
of course I can suspend the disbelief, but I also know that if I do get squeamy, then I think that's made out of chocolate and corn syrup, and
Hmm.
I know
Yeah, right.
and bits of dough flour, not dough flour.
And of course, the
That's the
world has
formula for
got
fake
plenty of
Loretta.
horrors, and we have to learn to deal with the horrors of the world as well, because we're so in tune with what's happening around the world compared to, you know, not too many generations back. Although I think a lot of people had access to, well, I don't know. During World War II, I don't know how much people knew about what the higher powers were doing. Not not really higher powers, but the human in control. Oh,
Yeah.
then the theology said about what a spiritual body might feel, and he said, "I'm cold or hot," and those comment to that was that's not as harmful as some thoughts. Uh,
But that he didn't know if he was all on fire. Not like physically cold or hot.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Because you don't want to be a lukewarm Christian. I thought that's what he was referring to
Oh, you think so?
when we were listening to it. I could be really wrong about that. But that's how I interpreted it when I was listening to it. He didn't want to be, you know, in the, you know. I think I'm probably wrong.
Well, yeah, that has its application. You know what you're saying. I know I thought it was from a previous tape though, but that's okay. Yeah.
Like,
But I don't know.
I didn't think he was talking about his actual physical body temperature. But that is I would wonder, like, does a spirit feel cold or hot? They certainly can make the room cold. They can make it hot too.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's probably one of the
I don't
easiest things
know.
they can do.
I don't know if souls from the next level, their bodies affect the temperature.
Yeah, I don't know that they would be doing that, but
Yeah, but even at the growing stage, like in the human kingdom, right? I don't
I feel
know.
like other spirits
I don't know
use
if they
that,
affect the
you know,
temperature. Yeah, well,
to
maybe
announce
they
their
do.
presence. It's an
I
announcement.
guess, yeah, I guess the spirit, I guess the mind can, I guess it has that kind of characteristic, I guess. I don't
I think
remember.
they can manipulate the air, the water, air molecules, whatever, to make it cold temporarily
Hmm.
in
I can see that.
certain cases.
I can see that, like even with the harp stuff. You know, they can do some triangulation of lasers of some strength, right? Sending frequencies to certain spots, triangulating them, and then if there's a certain amount of material in that atmosphere,
Yeah,
they can maybe get the things going,
right.
change them. And so uh, this brings up the example of how Doug talked about how Lucifer and the fallen angel souls could, well, he didn't use those terms, but how Lucifer and his associates, let me put it that way, could could generate, could manifest things in the human kingdom by working, getting the spirits, the discarnates, to go in certain directions or do certain things or influence somebody in a certain way. Uh, and I wonder if some of those are like those whirling dervishes that you see in the desert and stuff. What do they call them? Not whirling dervishes, but
They're
uh,
dust devils.
dust devils and stuff like that. I wonder about that. I don't know what Doe thinks about that. But he did. They did talk about how uh, they felt like sometimes um, the winds in the Midwest of the United States they were referring to at the time were so great sometimes because of all the spirits that were from all the buffalo that were killed that are still herding back and forth because that's what they were doing when they died. And so I guess they have to get to a stopping point sometimes, right? I'm not saying that that's the reason for all the
I
jet
do.
winds,
They,
but that does identify that uh, they can have an effect on the matter,
that
right?
energy needs to be present, maybe, and that's why they're still here running.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. So and he talks about faith healers a little bit. Let me go to the chat room.
Oh, yeah. Last time that there was
Happy freaking birthday, um, says old school Dave. Thank you.
he doesn't. What do
Happy,
you
Katie
want?
says, happy birthday, Sawyer. Your vehicle has completed another rotation around the sun.
Yeah, what do you want? He
What do
didn't.
I want?
We don't know if we're gonna work, or were we gonna take another day off? We take the whole weekend off. Can you imagine?
Wow. Wow, we'd be so
That's so derelict.
non-adult.
So derelict. We have not taken 3 days off in a row for a very long time. We haven't even taken 2 days off in a row for a very long time. Don't really need to, and it's been really nice though.
Okay, let me see if I'm understanding what's going on here. Uh, I'm going to get to what you said there, Joseph, but I want to see what Casey's saying. No, no, you misread me, my bad. Her headstone has her birth name. Oh, okay, that part. Yeah, good. Uh, okay, so yeah. So back to Joseph Coates says, do you think that Trump could be the Antichrist? No, not in that context.
He's pretty enough.
Yeah, he's not pretty enough.
Isn't the Antichrist supposed to be like insanely hot and attractive and charming and like
Right.
where is the Antichrist talked about in the Bible?
Peter. He says the Antichrist is with us now. See, they're trying to assign a person to be the Antichrist. They've been
Peter
doing
what?
this forever. You know, Gorbachev with the big spot on his bald head, big red spot on his bald head. They thought he was that was the mark of the beast. People were saying. So trying to Doe knew, and you can see Doe talk about the Antichrist in the Beyond Human series. So if you look in the book, if you get the text of the book, which you can download from heavensgate.com at the bottom of the book page, a zip file, it's in text format, you can read what Doe said about the Antichrist. And he said that he knew that
What Peter?
Christians would see him as the Antichrist.
Be ready for Christ's return. Is it Peter 1 or Peter 2?
You know, I don't really remember, so I should probably look it up here, baby, and I'll tell you then where it is.
I would guess it's I'm wrong, but I would guess it's in Be Ready for Christ's Return, 2nd Peter.
Yeah, First John. Let's see. So First John talks about it. You're in Peter now.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm wrong. It's in John.
Peter talks about Christ's return though in 2nd Peter chapter 3.
Right. To properly talk about that
See,
term.
that's what we were just talking about. Whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. But the heavens and the earth which are now, by the same word are kept in store, reserved unto fire, against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. That's where it says the fire.
Yes, that's right. So we probably are going to have a pretty severe global warming here. But the fire is all it's humans actually and space aliens.
Beware,
They contribute to it.
little children, is the last time, and as ye have heard that Antichrist shall come, even now are there many Antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last time. That's John chapter 2, verse 18.
Yes, I see that here. And
Who is a liar but he that denieth that Jesus is the Christ? He is Antichrist, that denieth the Father and the Son. Whosoever denieth the Son, the same hath not the Father. He that acknowledgeth the Son hath the Father also. Huh?
yeah, see, people. That's funny. I don't see that there.
This is the King James Version.
No, I have that. I just don't have the Antichrist word in the lexicon. I forgot what it was. Let me go to this other one here.
Hmm. What was that Schofield Bible that they were talking about on Jimmy Dore? What is that? I guess I can just Google it.
Schofield Bible.
Yeah, what is that?
It's a early version.
And they were saying it was based on the Talmud? This is
The Talmud is the spoken word history.
shows how much I know.
Here's a good part. So, did you read 2 John 1:7? For many deceivers are entered into the world who confess not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an antichrist. So it's some people associate it with
Wait, what was that?
John 2 John 1:7.
Second John. I'm in First John. First John talks about it quite a bit. Oh, there's the third, and here.
Now 2 John
Second 1:7. Do they talk about? Don't they talk about his appearance somewhere?
no, that's an interpretation
Ah.
because Jesus said that there were going to be false Christs.
So I was
So if you're a
wrong.
false Christ,
He
that
could
means you're
be ugly.
anti-Christ.
So he could be ugly.
So the antichrist would be everybody that is against the christening,
Right. Yeah. So that could. Oh.
the chrysalis of the
So
metamorphic conversion.
we could potentially all be antichrists.
Yeah, we could if we're speaking against that process existing, then whether we know it or not, we're being anti that metamorphic process, the
And that is the
conversion
one
into a new
unforgivable sin,
being.
right? Is blasphemy against the Holy Spirit.
Now, when you teach other people to God, then that's the only sin that can't be forgiven of you because, according to Jesus, in that interpretation. Because I think because you're deciding to be that way, and so you become that thinking, and that means that you're not going to accept anything as a change because you kind of got trapped into kink, a kink of thought. Like, what if you thought that uh, the people that created this planet, well, what if you thought that uh, it was a space alien race that brought about the humans on the Earth? You'd be correct in the context of the way that those that fell away in Genesis chapter 6 began to cohabitate with humans. So they started acting like humans. However, they did that, even if they were just mixing, things in a test tube, because they had a spacecraft that had that ability in order to develop embryos. They were still um, mingling their minds with the minds and the genetic material of the humans, and so uh, so basically that's why it's called. It says that they produced the giants. In other words, they were producing people that had a certain amount of greatness to them. It didn't mean that they were just necessarily bigger in stature. Well, it could have been. It could have been actually both, I think. I mean, that's from my examination of it. I'm not saying I got it right. But something regarding the Antichrist that people will hear different theologians say is that the name has been applied to the little horn of the king of fierce countenance from Daniel. The king of fierce countenance, the little horn. And I forgot what I wrote about that and thought about that. So I guess I shouldn't bring it up now. Because I wrote about it in my book. I was studying it, trying to figure out what those things could mean. Because we didn't get that kind of material from T and Do much. But but I think the closest to it is the idea of a false Christ. Now that could apply to a lot of different people. So is there going to be one person? I think it's more like a system, more like a general way of thinking that is against the things that were taught by any older member of the next level would teach, which would be, but pertinent to what the Christians are saying against Jesus' teachings. Because he was teaching the beginning of the chrysalis process of a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, a human becoming a member of the next level. And he was teaching the early stages of it by having restraint and treating people in certain ways and wanting to bear fruit for the older member. You want to develop your own self so that you can actually be a co-worker with the older members. That's fruit to the older members. They have another person doing all their tasks. And it's not that they need that, and they don't really need to they don't want to increase their numbers because they don't have any motivation to do that except for the joy in seeing members become members of the next level from the human kingdom. Uh, and I can see how that could be a joy. I mean, uh, you can see that in the human kingdom when somebody does something, that you're related to or, you're connected with and you're proud of them. You know, you're not necessarily getting anything from their doing it. But you might be getting, help with a great task, and seeing that they want to do that same task, is going to be pleasing to that person, right? And so that's not a bad characteristic to have joy from what somebody else chooses to do. And the reverse is true in the human kingdom as well. And they can see you get the facsimile of interpretation of things because pretty much everything can be twisted. It seems like, and so you get people that are in high positions in government, and they think they're making the best choices they can imagine making, or at the time, and they're considering this and that, and all these things that are being considered, and they might totally miss that. Well, we can sacrifice so many humans to this effort. And they were talking about this today on one of the talk show hosts that I like to listen to.
Jimmy Dore.
Good old Jimmy Dore and Kurt. And so I don't agree with everything he says, but I feel like I get a lot more objective views on things through him.
I
And
mean, he talks about, at least what we listened to today, he's talking about stuff that seems like other people aren't talking about.
hmm right,
I mean, I hadn't heard that before.
right. We don't want to get into the particulars, right?
Absolutely not, because this thing would get deleted.
Right. But anyway, um,
Fighter jet flying overhead right now.
yeah,
Can't
see, they
talk
heard.
about you can't talk about nothing.
I know the fighters are going back and forth. What are they doing? But we have exercises, right? But
We are by an airfield, so.
Let me go back to the chat before I go over to. Now, whether there does come a time when one person is the embodiment of that anti Christing, because Christing is a process. It's Jesus was teaching the Christing process. If you actually look up the words, you'll see that it has to do with oil in the lamp, and that you're making your whole body filled with light, and that the oil of the lamp is what Jesus talks about in the marriage. That some of the ones that were, uh, I guess they were considered to be virgins, which can also mean they've recovered their virginity. Uh, um, doesn't mean it's like from birth kind of thing, but they didn't do they didn't have oil in their lamps. In other words, they didn't build up the strength of mind to be able to maintain the direction of uh, uh, um, well, appealing to the older member. They put it in the framework that humans could identify with as being a marriage between a woman and a man, right? In that context. So, so if the woman was thought of as the student, which this isn't the reality, but this is the way the illustration was going at that time, was like the student, and the groom was the husband was the older member, Jesus in this example. Then you wanted to give your all to that individual, but if you hadn't done the work that gave you the power of your mind, the strength of your mind, then you wouldn't be accepted to be on that in his harem. You know, if you want to look at it that way, it's not really a harem. That's a
That
stupid
was a
word to use.
very bad
Yeah, that was a very bad word
in
to
his
use.
family.
In his family. That's right. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Because they don't have any sexuality. They don't have any marriage and giving. You can see Jesus talking about this. There's no marriage and giving in marriage in the next level, in the kingdom of God, in the kingdom in the heavens. That's because they're like the angels, he said. And the angels are the members of the next level, and they don't marry in there in the next level. They don't make commitments to other humans uh, um, because they've given their total commitment to the next level. And yes, it looks like a big extreme to us to think that way. But that's why it's so different than the human kingdom. That's another one of those characteristics that you won't see anybody else talking about except in, well, in some ways people do talk about that, those verses and everything. I know. So I'm not going to say that I know that nobody thinks about that the way the next level does. But that thinking as a clear definition of a requirement for graduation was to follow that straight and narrow. It's very narrow. It's designed to be that way. But that doesn't mean that all the forces all around that pathway aren't trying to get you off that pathway. They are. And that's the design of staying on that pathway means that you've got oil in your lamp. Enough. That's the way Theodore always said it, that you've accomplished your task of taking over the vehicle and getting rid of the negative influences and the human influences from it, uh, occupying that much space. You've done it enough to where the next level says, literally, looks at that soul with that vehicle and says, okay, we're gonna save you for a future opportunity. But eventually, you're going to get to the place to where we bring you back. You have a human experience, and you are again confronted with the same lessons, and you can even and the same lessons are going to give you that, with variations, because everybody doesn't get exactly the same lessons. Some people have overcome some things that others haven't, and so they bring you back and then have another experience to where you can graduate. And that's what's in store for probably anybody now that's in a vehicle, if they go in that direction. And uh, and that's why, Doe gave the tasks to do that. They told you what the formula was of separating from the human kingdom, and Doe gave Junodi the task to talk to us about that. And it's in it's in a number of documents. It's throughout the whole book, but it's put in very uh, succinct understanding that they were applying that to the people that were left behind in the document that's called Away Team from Deep Space Returns Before Departure. Did I say that right? Away Team from Deep Space Surfaces Before Departure. And and that's where they say that all the souls that had any significant relationship with the older members in the past, in the civilization, but they didn't limit it to the civilization, so it potentially could be a past civilization, um, or were back. They were back while they were here, and they're back now. And that their task is their opportunity to get Tiando's information out. That's how they were going to show the next level they were connected. And so that's one part of it. But they didn't just leave it at that. Junodi went on to describe the formula for becoming a member of the next level, and it was separating from all the humanness. And she put a pretty good paragraph there of including everything in the human kingdom, pretty much. So that's the formula for becoming a member of the next level that every member of the next level is going to have to measure up to at some point in their development. And enough to where the next level says you've done enough, because what you're doing is you're developing your mind to be stronger. It's not necessarily about the particulars of each thing in life that is on that list of adhering to that best you can in your mind and in your actions. The major and the lesser offense lists in the Heaven's Gate book is not just about that. It's about being of service. That's also service, but that's being of service is also being willing to stand up for Tiendo and accept the consequences and maintain that stand until they leave their human environment, however that happens. I'm going to add that part. I don't remember if Junodi used those words, but 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 standing up for Tiendo also meant uh, believing that they came from the kingdom that created this earth and the life forms on it. Okay, so that's a big thing to believe in. But that's also, it's not. Uh, Once somebody decides that they believe that, yes, they're still going to be tested. Yes, they're still going to have doubts potentially. Yes, they're going to still have times, weak times and strong times, and yes, they're going to do the task in different ways at different times. Whatever it is in life. Like you meet somebody and you start a conversation, and before you know it, you're saying a little bit about something about the next level. that they may have not have thought about. And in a sense, that's, you know, getting their information out. I mean, the more direct, probably the better, uh, but I'm not the one that judges that, so I'm not going to say what's really better or worse. But because that would be that's not my place to do. But you know, how you do things is part of it as well. It's not just about just getting the information out. It's how you do it, and you would be trying to do it the way a member of the next level would do it. So you wouldn't be, you know, trying to, act like if they didn't do this, they were going to hell, because that's not our judgment. If they, if they don't grow in this way of, because you don't know when someone's going to change too, and you don't know how fast they can change. Those are things that none of us know about anybody else. Uh, so, uh, so it's worthless to try to judge people. That doesn't mean we can't judge behavior that we don't want around us. That's a given also. Like, who wants to be around people being hurt or even manipulated? I don't really want like that. I don't like being in this world in that way, to where so many are manipulated. They don't think they're manipulated, but some do, and they like it, I guess. Because it does something for them. But see, the next level things don't do anything for anybody on a human level. I mean, yeah, you could say, well, maybe I can sell some books because I was in the class and I wrote a book. So I'm benefiting by some funds. So is that on a human level? Well, if you knew how few books I sold, you wouldn't think that it was much of a help. But I do appreciate it. But I think that's an extreme way of looking at it. That I was just pointing out there, because it's something that somebody can say negative about everything. Oh, this is interesting also about that same talk from the tape 278, where Doe is talking about how a negative influence, for example, like he was using Sam Odie as an example still. He says this didn't apply to Sam Odie directly, I don't believe. But let's say it has a negative influence whose spirit body has a bad eye or some other bad organ because of the condition of the spiritual body. So now what we're talking about by spiritual body isn't necessarily just a soul, but it can be a spirit that is, its own plasma kind of body. That's the shape of the body, human body, but has all these different components in it, related to the whole body of the human. The gallbladder has a certain composition and everything else and function and all that. Okay, so let's say that human was living, and I don't know if this is a good example, but let's say they got hit in the eye by a bat or a club or something, right? And it destroyed their eye. And uh, I don't know if that injury would also, well, I guess that injury would also be on the spirit. And so if when that individual died, and that individual then went, because they were in the family with, let's say, Sam Odie's vehicle's family, and they liked the way that Sam Odie played the piano, and so they were a piano player before they got hit in the eye, and so they go and they are enjoying playing the piano through Sam Odie and helping her even do a better job. It becomes a helper, okay, in that way. And but Sam Odie might also get from that individual that characteristic of having damage to the eye. Now, I don't know how that might translate. And, it's just an example of how the mind actually takes on the characteristics of the vehicle that it was in at the time. And those characteristics are like a frequency part of the database, and a certain time could even stimulate a problem at a certain time in life, according to when that became a problem for that spirit. I'm expanding it a little bit from what Doe is saying, and I might be wrong about some of that expansion, but I think it's close to what Doe is describing in this tape, and you can. So, uh, but let's see. And the closer that spirit gets to Sam Odie, the more that spirit has an influence on Sam Odie's current vehicle. Is what I'm saying. Flesh vehicle. In this case, human vehicle that the soul called Sam Odie was operating. And then she could be troubled by that. But that if she feels that trouble, she can start to work on that by uh, not going along with that. Now, if the vehicle actually has, because the exact same injury, I don't believe, carries to that new vehicle, influences them necessarily in the same way. But it could mean that they do have some condition of some sort in their eye, but they might be able to actually do some kind of exercises or take some herbs or something, and or some kind of medicine, and even use meditation of trying to imagine the next level mind coming into your body and healing all uh, your the cells of your physical body, because that's a meditation that Tiendo taught us. I think it's like tape 30 or something. Which tape is that? 10? No, 3 or 4, or one of the early ones in the list. Might be one. It might be one. They teach about that meditation. Yeah, I use that all the time. I was using it the other day when I was feeling something, and I was trying to bring that in. And yeah, yeah, I use it all the time, and I don't. Uh, um, I should say I know it works, but I always feel like I'm not doing it right, or I don't deserve it, or those are negative thoughts, though. So I've got to get rid of those negative thoughts because they would diminish the strength of mind that knows that healing can come from the next level. Uh, that is, if that's what the next level wants to happen with our vehicles. That is, if we put ourselves in the hands of the next level in our minds. Otherwise, then things might happen to the vehicle, and the next level may help us heal it, but they may not. They may think that really we can do a better service by having a certain problem. So even people that have problems doesn't mean that they've entertained negative influences. It may be that that's the best thing for them to experience to grow a certain amount of strength of mind to conquer. So there are no negatives that happen to us unless we let them be negatives or continue to see them as negatives, but see them as opportunities to grow to have more next level mind in us. Anyway, okay, I'll go back to the chat. Is that what you said? Reminded me. Thank you. So Casey says in 1952, Doe's vehicle was married to a Anne Frances Nickerson. I don't remember that name, Nickerson.
Was that her maiden?
Yeah, did she have, uh, was she married before? I never looked into much of her background. Anyway, then Casey says, do you guys have access to any photos of Gabodi? No, but I did meet him. And he came into the group, I think at the same time as Iris Odie did. Gail joined in 94. And he had long black curly afro. And he was in a white vehicle. Anyway, Yinko says, happy birthday, Sawyer. Thank you. Appreciate that. And what else? That's about it, I think, unless I missed somebody. Um, what do you think? Should I wrap it up? Yeah. Yeah. I went through the tape a lot, and I'm glad I did. We had the time for it. And it's been good to talk again. So we'll just have to, continue this talk about T&O's material and things at another time. So good night, folks.